A Lifetime in Time, written and illustrated by Timothy John Villado. Chapter 1, Housewarming, a House with Warning. His sleep was restless. Visions of smashing the former keeper's hearthstone made him toss and turn until he was tied up in sheets and damp and sticky with sweat. When his eyes opened, in the complete darkness, it set him in a panic. He bounced from his bed and fell onto the floor, frantically searching for an opening in the lightless box that had become his room. Finally, after so much thrashing around, he found the door by falling through it. Unfortunately, he had used the side of his face as the tool to open it. He fell into the food court screaming, breathing heavily and rubbing the reddening side of his face. He looked around and was almost comforted by the sight of Larry, who had never left the side of his sleeping box. "Crap," he said under his breath, thinking this might have just been a twisted dream. "If you would like a bathroom, boss, I believe one is just past the cookie hut." "So even a good night's sleep is out of the question in this place," he griped. "It could be your choice of accommodations, boss. They're not very accommodating. How about a better room?" "Not now," he said, considering the offer. "But a cookie would be good." "You're the boss." Within minutes he had picked out a birthday-sized cookie with frosting and a Diet Coke. He ate his breakfast mechanically, not tasting it at all, as his mind kept telling him that he had taken a life. "Maybe," he thought, "that's the way it's supposed to be. Maybe keepers have to go into the next life at some point, and the next one has the crappy duty of assisting them in that journey. Maybe that was just the circle of life in the gateway." The thought brought little comfort. Would someone someday take his life and his new position? What is this position? He thought, being that he didn't even know what the position meant. He needed to clear his mind, and knowing there must be a record store somewhere, the boy headed off through the mall. "Boss, do you want to keep the mall or should we erase it?" "I guess keep it for now," he said, brushing the cookie crumbs from his mouth as he took a swig from his Diet Coke. "I mean, it's not a problem, is it? I will need different clothes when I go home. I don't have much of an allowance or a car to get to the real mall, so explaining different clothes might be difficult." "No, we have no problem keeping it. You can recreate just about anything for long-term storage, as long as it's not bigger than Jupiter." "You mean the planet?" he asked in amazement. "Yeah, if it's bigger than Jupiter, we have to create a dimensional anomaly, though we've only had to do that once." "Get out of here. How big is the gateway?" he asked, passing the record store and abruptly dashing into another clothing store. "About the size of Jupiter," Larry said, following him. "It didn't start that way, I can assure you. When the gateway was created, it was no bigger than a room like the one you slept in. It was only after its sentient mind was created that it started to grow. It expanded at an incredible rate. She could solve all the problems that Doshin had with repairing the webs that he journeyed in. But it took a great deal of power and room to work. We're really in kind of a great big machine, or like blood cells flowing in a giant body." In the boy's mind, he only half heard what was being said, losing Larry almost entirely around the heavily lisped word problems. Most of his brain played a distant echo calling him a murderer, and the rest was diligently picking through the store's clothing to find his correct size. "Hey, can you carry this?" questioned the boy, handing Larry a pack of underwear and trying to keep the frosting from his cookie off of them. "Oh, thanks," lisped Larry, sarcastically, and a metal arm quickly sprouted from the side of the robot's body. "Hey, if this is the size of Jupiter, what else is here?" The annoyed tone in the boy's voice changed, showing his interest as he found a large black T-shirt. "I mean, if this mall is made for me, what was made for the other keeper?" "You mean Doshin?" asked Larry. Who? Asked the boy. Dosheen was the former keeper's name, Larry stated as if the boy should have been paying attention. Oh yeah, Dosheen. Is his stuff around here? Or was it erased? No, it's all here. Would you like a tour? Larry's voice had the faint element of excitement to it. Yeah, he replied, tossing the rest of his cookie in a nearby trash bin. Let me see how the other half lived. As they traveled down the endless hallways, the boy noticed that the walls seemed to be alive, in colors of dark blue and gray, that would occasionally pulse with the sound or with faint ghost-like light. White lights appeared every 6 feet or so and turned themselves off as they moved. A little dark in here, don't you think? Said the boy with a sense of foreboding. It feels creepy. Brandy? Larry said, addressing the air. A little light down here would be appreciated. With that, the light brightened, and so did the walls. The halls now seemed to have the feel of a giant vein of light blue. Who's Brandy? The boy asked. That is what we call the mind of the gateway. Oh, was the only reply that the boy could come up with, though the question as to why they named her Brandy was almost on his lips as they arrived at a door which seemed to grow from some metallic plant that had taken up residence on the side of the wall. The door slid open as they approached, stopping the question the boy was about to ask. As they stepped through, the light brightened. This is our zoo. There was an underlying tone of shame in his electronic voice. The boy peered down the long, tall hallway lined with thick glass. They looked like holding cells for criminals, and not at all environmentally friendly zoo cages. As he hesitantly looked into the first cell, an enormous blue slime slammed the glass with a sticky splash, causing him to jump back to the safety of the entrance. What the heck was that? He yelled in shock. Sorry, said Larry. That's a bug mouth. It's the creature from a place called Bryant's. Do you mean Brian's? He questioned. No, replied Larry, seeming a bit perturbed. I mean Bryant's. It's rather a nasty thing. It envelops its prey and drains it of all of its bodily fluids, and then eats the remains. It's a bit close to feeding time. When they're hungry, they can get cranky. Can it get out? The nervousness in his voice betrayed his emotions. Don't worry. In here, nothing has ever gotten out unless the keeper wanted it to. Well, I definitely don't want that thing out. You know, boss, maybe this isn't the best room to start with. We can come back after feeding time. The boy looked up at the silver ball with suspicion. No, he said. It's okay. I like creepy things as much as the next movie buff. Slowly he started to walk down the hallway, keeping himself to the center and away from the glass. The next cell had large worm-like beasts, boring into a carcass of something that resembled a dead whale. They made quick work of their meal and then formed into a group ball to aid in their digestion. Well, that was gross, he commented. Oh, you should see what they can do to non-living material. We only feed them meat because it makes them more docile. That's docile? The boy said in shock. Yes, they can eat an entire city in about an hour. They were created by one of the elder races for war. Sadly, they found out that when their food of choice runs out, they will consume flesh too, though it takes them a while to adjust. As the boy turned, his mouth dropped open. Across from the worm cell, he found himself face to face with a T-Rex. If it wasn't already engrossed with its dinner, the boy would have made a beeline back to the doorway. Instead, he found himself marveling at its size and its color, which made his mind wander back to every tie-dye shirt he had ever seen. That's a... he stuttered. Yep, replied Larry. That's a T-Rex. It's really colorful. Oh, yes, Larry confirmed. In a couple of years, your people will figure out that they weren't all flat green, gray, or brown. Amazing. He stood transfixed in awe of its majesty as the king of the dinosaurs tore at the flesh of its dinner. As it started to look up, the boy became afraid. And it's one thing to watch it eat, and it was another thing to look directly in its eye. As he pushed himself toward the next cell for a hopeful break, his heart turned to utter fear. Giant bug-like monsters with bodies of millipedes climbed on the walls of the cell. The feelers on their heads searched out their next meal. As they lifted up their underbellies, resembled large, slimy, newborn human babies with dastardly sharp teeth. The bugs stopped swarming, only to eat the people that were screaming at the bottom of the cage. "Ah!" screamed the boy as he ran out of the room and back to the mall. Both, wait a minute, you don't understand," Larry pleaded, trying to follow after him. The boy ran hard, harder than he had ever run before. As he left the hallway and broke into a slip-sliding run through the mall, he searched his head for a plan. He ran straight into the first sports store he found and smashed open a rifle case with a kick. The weapon seemed too small for the amount of fear that now raced through him. He quickly made his decision. Shotgun. "Damn it," he mumbled. "I knew this had to be one of those bad sci-fi movies. It's just a matter of time before they gain your trust, and then they try to kill you to serve mankind. It's a cookbook," he said out loud, quoting the old Twilight Zone episode. By the time Larry had caught up to him, he had loaded the shotgun and aimed it at Larry's eye. "Whoa, boss. Look, I know the bugs are a little intense, but they can't get out of their shells, and..." With a giant boom, Larry's body scattered all over the mall, and his shattered pieces melted into the floor. The boy reloaded, as another Larry flew up to take the place of the old one. "What I was saying is that people aren't real." Again, the boy took aim and destroyed the second Larry. The third time Larry appeared in a slightly darker color. Boom! The darker Larry smashed through a window display and screamed in an electronic voice that was very much out of character. "Boss, could you please stop shooting me?" Larry flew up hesitantly as the boy kept the gun locked on its target. "What I was trying to say before you blew me up is that the people that you saw in the cage are made by the gateway. They're not real. They're not alive. They don't think unless you want them to. The screaming and the thrashing is the only way the bugs will eat their food. They're shaped and they act like humans, but they're made of plant stuff. They're kind of a soy substitute." The boy's voice broke under his strained breathing. Why people?" he yelled through gritted teeth. "That is their natural food source." "Are the bugs real?" "Yes, the bugs are real," confessed Larry. "The keeper used them if he had problems with, humans." "Oh, this place gets better and better. What did I inherit, hell?" "Boss, maybe you should set down the gun and..." "No way," he spat. "What kind of problems with humans did the keeper have?" The fear in the boy was growing out of control. From the corner of his eye, he looked for more weapons, only to realize that he had the biggest one in the store. "Not everything is cut and dry," Larry said, quietly trying to calm the boy. "There's good and bad in all races. Doshin had a number of humans that wanted control over time. Rather than risk that, he felt that time would better be served to eliminate them." "Great! I did inherit hell," the boy barked. "And now I get my own personal petting zoo of the damned. This sucks." "Look, boss, you are in control here. They exist on your say-so. If you want them gone, moved, killed, or released, it's your call." "I want the room sealed," he commanded, surprised at the tone of his voice. Larry tilted toward the ceiling. "Brandy," he said, "lock down zoo number 12 by command of the keeper." "There's more than one?" the boy asked, trying to not let his mind wander to the countless other nightmares that might exist in this realm. "Yes, but they're not all that bad," Larry assured him. "Lock them all." "Brandy, lock all those, please." Once again, he voiced his request while peering up, and then turned to the boy. "You can put the gun down now, boss." "No," he said firmly. "Okay, maybe you should keep the gun and get some more ammo so we can shoot everything we see." The boy lowered his gun but grabbed more ammo and a pistol. "All right, Larry," the boy said, loading the handgun and nervously stuffing it in his pants. "Let's go on with our little tour." Larry paused for a moment and tried to understand if this was sarcasm. Assuming it wasn't, they continued onward. They skipped the bug room and went to the next door. They found themselves in a small room with what looked to be a highly electronic vault door on it. "Boss, the lock is hand-activated. It changed to your imprint when you became the keeper." The boy slowly and cautiously put his hand on the panel and aimed his gun at it as well. "What are you going to do, shoot your hand?" Larry asked. But before the boy could answer, the door opened and a football-sized stadium loaded with treasure appeared. The ceiling gave off light through an Art Nouveau-style grid work high above them. The boy's mouth dropped open as Larry flew about, pointing to different Earth currencies and riches from other worlds. The boy had a strong desire to play in the stacks of gold or to dive into piles of paper money, but the fear of letting himself go was too strong. He moved cautiously into the room as if he was the lead actor in one of the many bad B-movies he had seen. He never stopped to focus too long on any one object and scanned the sky for predators. "These are leftovers," stated Larry. "The former keeper kept them as souvenirs once he figured out how to get the gateway to reproduce otherworld currencies. Personally, I think he used it to impress the ladies." The boy recognized the mountains of gold and the hills of diamonds, and the haphazard stacks of paper money. Even the plastic cards of different colors he assumed must be money somewhere. But what he couldn't figure out was what was the lumpy white stuff in the glass freezer. "Hey, what's the stuff that looks like cottage cheese?" he asked. "Cottage cheese, or close enough to it. It's worth a lot depending on where you are in the universe." Larry circled around him, appearing to also take in the view. "Could you stop that?" the boy asked. "Stop what?" "Stay in my sight," he commanded. "Yes, boss." And with that, Larry took up a position in the boy's sight line. "You don't think I'm going to attack you, do you, boss?" "It shouldn't matter what I think," he replied, mocking Larry's speech pattern. And then something caught the boy's eye. "Hey, is that a Van Gogh?" He rushed over to the painting left carelessly on the floor. "Yeah, the real Van Gogh, the loom, from 1884. The one on Earth is a gateway reproduction. You'll find a lot of Van Goghs around here, and a lot of gateway reproductions on Earth. Doshin was a big fan." The boy was tired of asking questions, and the container of dancing cockroaches was just too bizarre to consider money. "More damn bugs," he said under his breath. "Let's keep moving." As they left, the boy slipped a stack of 20s into his jacket pocket, fumbling to move his ammo to the back of his jeans. As time went on, he became more relaxed and even took his aim off of Larry. In the next 2 hours, they saw 27 bedrooms, if you could have called them that, 7 bathrooms, some with toilets that would have required a yoga master to navigate, and 5 wilderness areas. 2 of the areas came from Earth, but the other 3 were anyone's guess. The weightless one was his favorite, though he wouldn't have admitted it to Larry. He spent a solid 10 minutes trying to get back to the door and spazzed when his ammo went in one direction and his shotgun in the other. Every horror flick he had ever seen kept playing in his head, and he was sure that at any moment someone or something would try to kill him, or try to feed him to some belly baby bugs. As he grabbed his weapon, he was just happy to still be alive and grateful that Larry didn't laugh. One room was decorated in dark red satin and was full of girls, or females from different planets. They were all very distant and cold, and none of them spoke. They all had the look that zombies carried in their eyes, and this was almost as unnerving as a zoo. Larry assured him that they also had been created by the Gateway and were not real or being kept prisoner. They stopped for lunch in a room that seemed like a section of a Chicago city street. Larry told him that Doshin loved good pizza, and out of all of his travels, Vinny's Pizza, June of 1972, on Clark Street in Chicago, Illinois, was exceptional. So this room had been created to satisfy his cravings. There were other storefronts that were restaurants or coffee houses from different times, and even an ice cream parlor from the 50s. Why not just keep going back to that time? He asked Larry. To keep dropping into the exact same spot in time repeatedly weakens the web and the structure of that reality. It can also leave a scar in the webs that help us travel through time. Also, you keep running into yourself. Plus, when the same guy buys pizza all afternoon, people tend to notice that kind of thing. Did you mean scar? The boy asked, more out of an attempt to slam Larry than for clarification. Yes, I said scar, said Larry, unaware of the insult. Think of time as a cassette tape. If you keep recording over to the same tape in the same spot, the sound loses clarity, and eventually the tape will break or become worn. Doshin had a rule of 3 that he followed. He felt that time could be broken into in the same spot 3 times without long-term effect. No more than 3 times in an hour period in a chosen time stream. Eventually, he wouldn't go back to the same landing spot more than twice, just to be safe. Larry flew to the other side of the table as a vacant-eyed girl placed a large pizza in front of them and left without a word. Why go there at all? Questioned the boy. What do you mean? Larry asked. Well, Doshin could have had created anything or any time he wanted inside of the Gateway. Why bother to travel? I mean, the pizza's great. The street would have fooled me. If I didn't know it better, then why travel? Look at the waitress, he said, and the boy studied the girl. Yeah? Would you date her? No, he replied in disgust. Why not? Larry asked. She wouldn't say no to anything you asked of her. She's kind of creepy, replied the boy, and creepy with a capital C. That's the difference. Larry turned to the waitress and scanned her form. She's pretty, she's willing, she won't ask anything of you, but it wouldn't be real. Nothing in the Gateway is a complete replacement for real life. Do they have emotions or feelings? He asked, pointing at the girl while trying to pick up a piece of pizza that left part of its cheese in the pan and part on his new leather jacket. Not unless you program them to act like they do, and even then, they're not real. They're based on a substance that is very much like plant cells. We call them AODs, artificial organic drones. They look real, they can react in a real manner, bleed real, and pass for meat, but on an atomic level, they are really just basically plants. They can't reproduce, age, or learn. They only react in the manner that they are programmed, but they are useful for certain comfort interactions and projection. Projection? Questioned the boy, trying to clean the cheese from his jacket and almost knocking over his drink. When Doshin talked to you, he was dormant in his heartstone, but his personality and character had been programmed into the AOD. To be truthful, his AOD was the second most complicated program outside of Brandy herself. She is truly a thinking and learning program. Wait a minute. The boy's eyes widened. Are you saying I've never really met Doshin? And why can you say his name without a lisp? It's not allowed. It's disrespectful. And no, in truth, you've never met him. Just his heartstone. Then what's to stop me from pulling up that program again and asking him for a tour of the Gateway? Nothing, other than each time you pull it up, you piss Brandy off. They were very close. The boy's face squinted at Larry, and he was about to say something, but he stopped himself. He sat for a moment and then he smiled. If he is a copy of himself, would he answer my questions truthfully? As much as he would if he were alive, Larry replied. Again there was silence. The boy said nothing, but intentionally made his chewing of the pizza loud, almost as if to indicate that he had become bored with the topic and the answers. So, what other fringe benefits do I get from being the keeper? He asked, making the imaginary quote signs in the air after saying the word keeper. The powers of the keeper are lengthy. Where would you like to begin? How about shape-shifting? The eagerness in the boy's voice betrayed his desire to know more. To him, the idea of shape-shifting was a sure route to becoming a superhero, and what teenage boy doesn't dream about that? Besides, from a very young age, he loved werewolf movies, so the choice of what to change into first was not going to be a difficult one. Well, the shape-shifting is a learned ability, not one you get automatically. It takes years of practice and study, if done right. What you do get immediately is the ability to speak, or rather to be heard in other languages, and to understand those languages. In the gateway, all beings can understand each other as you would understand them. Choice. What else? Well, there's the traveling in time and space and other realities, though the last one is a bit more tricky. Other realities are interesting, but they're not a true or current version of your life. When you think of the gateway and you wave your hand in the air in a circle, you create a doorway into the landing area. Landing area? You haven't been there yet. Think of it as an airport terminal. It is the only place one can depart or arrive into the gateway from. The boy waved his hand in the air, and nothing happened. Well, firstly, boss, you have to leave the gateway from the landing area, which means you just walk through the doorway at the far end of the room. Outside the gateway, you have to use your ring hand. The ring is the antenna that signals the gateway to open a portal for you to come back. You have to concentrate, wave your arm in a great big circle, and then step through. Anyone you want to take with you has to come first, because when you step through, the portal closes. What if I lose the ring? He said, checking for the ring and noticing that it no longer felt loose. This prompted him to start trying to pull it off, first hard, then harder, but to no avail. You can't take it off. It's now bonded through your skin to your bone. The power is in you. The ring is just what sends the signal. Even understanding Larry's words, he still kept trying. What if somebody cuts off my finger to get to the ring? He said, finally giving up. Well, that's an ugly thought. I suppose you'd have to cut away some part of your own flesh until some bone was showing through to act as an antenna. What if I'm knocked out? Well, then you would find it difficult to cut away the proper amount of skin. Finally, the boy pushed the pizza away. That brings me to another subject, Larry said cautiously. Your safety is key to the gateway survival. Since all places you go may not be friendly, you will start defense classes in the morning. Oh, you have got to be kidding me, he moaned. We could send you out with an escort each time, but armed guards tend to attract attention. By this time, the boy was pounding. Listen, I know I'm no Bruce Lee, but I've had fights and I've managed. You've had schoolboy scuffles. I think you'll understand after we visit the training area. The boy followed Larry out of the Chicago room and down several hallways and through a large hole in the wall. Larry went in and immediately dropped into the darkness. The boy stood there confused and then heard a faint echo. Are you coming? He stepped in and fell what seemed to be 10 stories straight down, screaming and swearing as his body flipped end over end. It was at this point that he realized he'd left his shotgun in the pizza place. The panic made him search for the revolver, as his mind told him it wasn't going to do a damn bit of good if this fall killed him. Gun clenched tightly in hand, his body slowed, and he was set gently on the ground. What the hell was that? He said breathlessly, pointing the gun at Larry, who took no notice of the weapon. Our version of an elevator. The quickest way from one point to another is to fall under your own power. We did try to speed it up, but people started getting sick. Don't worry, no one's ever gotten hurt. I'll try to remember that. Next time I won't eat lunch first, he said, holding his stomach. He walked into the darkness, and the room brightened as if the walls were giving off light. In front of him was another stadium-sized space, blank as a sheet of fresh paper, with the exception of a waist-high pillar with buttons and a set of headphone-shaped controllers. Larry flew over to the pillar, and a long metal pole came out of his body and went into it. "You're not getting excited, are you?" the boy laughed. "Hardly. The practice room is locked because it's dangerous. I'm calling up one of the battle programs that Doshin favored." The room transformed itself into an alien landscape. Tall columns of black rock that shined like glass jutted into a crimson sky. Each column dripped with a red lava-like substance that seemed to make the columns glow and the room considerably warmer. Figures, 20 in black and silver armor, surrounded a single figure in blue and gray. The armor was organic and sleek, not at all like the armor the boy had seen on the knights of old. It form-fitted each warrior, and spikes sprouted from the coverings that protected the joints of each creature. All the figures were at least human in some respects. Something was there where a head should be, and there were 2 legs. The 2 legs looked like they belonged on velociraptor bodies. The central figure's lower body was made even more dinosaur-like by the addition of a long tail. Where there should have been 2 arms, there were 4. 2 of the arms were longer and sprouted from what would have been shoulder blades on the back of a human. "Stay behind the pillar, and you'll be safe," Larry advised. "Just press play to start, the yellow button." "So your date will protect us?" Larry said nothing to the boy's sarcasm. The boy tightened his grip on the revolver and pressed the button. The drama that unfolded in front of him was 2.5 minutes of the most gory scene he had ever seen. Arms flying, heads rolling. At one point, the center figure took out 5 of the black armored attackers with an almost graceful dance move, sticking 4 with different sized swords in each of his hand and 1 with a blade attached to his tail. It could have been a scene from a dark comedy, body parts flying through the air like tossing pies or water balloons. When it was over, only the blue and gray figure remained standing. The figure removed its oversized helmet, and it looked vaguely like Doshin, but in a really buff version of his lizard form. The boy had been so shocked by the violence that he had forgotten that he was even holding the gun. "Can you do that?" questioned Larry. "No," said the boy flatly. "That's why you need training." Larry turned off the program. "Wait," said the boy, as if he had figured out the answer to a perplexing question. "Was that Doshin?" "Yes, that was the form that he took into battle, the form he felt the most comfortable in when things got ugly." As they left, the boy wondered what his fighting form might be one day. Werewolves were cool, but he had a feeling that anything from his favorite monster movie wouldn't have lasted too long in that arena. The rest of the day became a blur. Like the first time you listened to a new band. You knew it was cool, but you couldn't remember most of the songs. As they explored more rooms, they came across one that was for creating AODs. It was the size of a factory, though its lack of noise and green glow made it feel very eerie indeed. Larry informed him that most of the rooms in the gateway had a link to this room, and that's why AODs could pop up when requested. A green syrupy gel poured down from the tube in the ceiling and into a mold that would change its shape as the boy requested. The boy created 2 girl figures resembling TV stars that he had crushes on. They were taller than the boy, so Larry suggested he shrink them. This took nothing more than putting them back into the mold and squeezing out a little excess goo. After experimenting with hair color or body type, their lifeless eyes made him feel uneasy. Still, they were both very attractive, and far better looking than anyone he had ever hoped he would have a chance with. And now he had just created them with a thought and a word. Larry's words rang in the back of his head. "They would do anything you want." At that moment, Larry seemed to read his mind. "Would you like some alone time, boss?" he asked as the boy gave him a questioning glance. "Not if this is the moment that you and the gateway are going to kill me," he returned, while checking his gun to make sure that it was still there. "I promise that no harm will come to you inside the gateway. You are the keeper." The boy looked back at the two girls and nodded hesitantly that Larry should leave. Once the door shut, he assessed his creations and questioned his desires as his mind entered into a heated debate. "You're an idiot," one voice said. "Huh, like you'd have a chance with a girl this fine in the real world," argued another. "They're not even alive. How gross is that?" "Dude, they look totally real." "They're not." "The eyes, they're just like the ones on that creepy pizza girl." "You know, some freaks date inflatable girls. That's sick. So's this." "If all inflatable girls look like this," started one. "The population problem would be solved," finished another. "Chalk it up to practice," laughed the calm voice. "After all, not a single breathing girl is going to ask him to the Sadie Hawkins dance. But let's say one did. He's never even had his first kiss. He should at least get that down." The last voice seemed convincing, and the boy moved in to the closest AOD. He was just about to kiss her when he stopped. Is it, he struggled to say, "is it all right if I kiss you?" The AOD's blank eyes looked straight ahead as it answered yes. He pressed his lips against hers, only to receive no response. The harder he tried, the worse it made him feel, though she did nothing else but stand there passively. In a desperate attempt to draw some sort of reaction, his hand slid upward toward her breasts. It surprised him. After looking at stolen copies of Playboy since he was in 3rd grade, he had always assumed the breast to be hard like a muscle. This was not only soft, but the sheer coldness of the AOD's flesh made him pull away, as if he had touched a cadaver. It took several minutes of mentally screaming to himself that he was both a pervert and a fool before he could lift his gaze back up to look at the AOD. She still wore no expression and looked out blankly as if nothing had ever happened. Feeling guilty and stupid, he unmade them, and back into the gel they went. Unmaking them had made him feel even more dirty than he had when he had touched the breast, because now he felt like he was trying to get rid of a body to hide a crime. In his head, a lone voice asked a question. "Murderer and molester of the living dead? My oh my, what's next on your agenda?"